Welcome back to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning has been on the LGBT community. The Pew Research Center reported in 2013 that an overwhelming share of America's lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender adults say society has become more accepting of them in the past decade, and an equal number expected it to grow even more accepting in the decade ahead. My next guest represents an organization that specifically serves the needs of those who consider themselves transgendered. Meredith Leischer is a facilitator at the Gemini Gender Group, and Brenda Hanus has been supported by that same group. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you both here. And if you could, Meredith, start off telling us more about the Gemini Gender Group and how it does support transgendered individuals.
Okay. Gemini Gender Group was started about 1993 to support the transgender, cross-dresser, anybody who is under the umbrella of transgender, for helping them with support, referrals, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I've been the facilitator of the group since about that time, primarily just with the transgender people, but we're welcoming to all people who have issues with their gender.
Okay, and so there's been an extreme amount of attention given to this subject. In a recent online article, CNN wrote that 2015 may be remembered as the year the term transgender fully entered mainstream consciousness. Do you all agree with that?
Yes, I do. It's very much so. I mean, between TV shows like the new Orange is the New Black.
I love it.
Transparent on Amazon. It's becoming, and also mainstream magazine articles, we clearly are becoming more known. And the whole thing with Caitlyn Jenner makes it a lot easier to bring up the topic and talk about it, because you don't have to start from ground zero.
You don't have to try to explain to everybody what it means, because with the coverage, people are getting a better understanding. You would agree?
Absolutely.
And I just went to a family reunion where this 80-year-old lady who was sitting across from me, who didn't know who I was, but I had to explain who my wife was. And she says, "Oh, like Bruce Jenner?" I said, "Yes."
Yeah, so it does really help. And in January, President Obama condemned the persecution of people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. He became the first president to utter the word in a State of the Union address. Did that make a difference to you in witnessing something like that being done before the entire country?
Absolutely. I mean, it's nice to know that somebody in government recognizes who you are and that you have some worth.
Yeah, and you spoke of this TV series, Transparent. It's about an aging father who decided to live his life as a woman, and it won 2 top awards at the Golden Globes, which also brought this all to the forefront for many people. And then you mentioned Orange is the New Black. So you've got Laverne Cox, who is a transgender, who made the cover of Time magazine. And then she also became the first transgender to become a wax figure at Madame Tussauds. And that's being unveiled at the Pride Fest in San Francisco. So these are really huge feats, and I bring them up for a reason, because there's got to be certainly some pride in seeing that individuals are being embraced.
Yes, it's important. It means that you're not in the closet off on the side. I mean, oftentimes the transgender community has felt a little bit left behind as we push through for and things like that for equal employment rights, because the attitude has been, well, if we include you, it'll make it harder to get this bill through. And people are finally saying, you're part of the party too.
Absolutely.
It means a lot to us.
Yeah. So with the Gemini Gender Group, what are some of the issues that are identified by those who are needing and wanting support?
Well, one of the big things is unemployment or underemployment.
Okay.
Being transgendered, you've got an issue with a name change, and when you change your name, that's in the legal record, and everybody does background checks nowadays, and if that comes up, you're likely to be discriminated against. I suppose the bigger issue would be suicide within the transgender community. I think we've lost about 4 people in about the last 5 years.
Wow.
So
and also violence against transgender individuals is higher too. I think we've been averaging about 1 per month getting killed just because you're a transgender person. Maybe it's getting better, but we are under higher risk than the normal LGBT population as a whole. I mean, it's much easier for a gay man or a lesbian to blend in when necessary for safety, and for us, it's often we're not so fortunate.
Okay, yeah, that's part of the reason why we're having this conversation today, because we do want people to have a better understanding, and it's really not for them to understand if you really want to break it down on allowing people to live their own lives, but you want people to be more compassionate and try to put themselves in someone else's shoes and not make it so difficult for people who may not be like you. So what I wanted to focus on just for a second, the both of you are openly transgendered, and there's been all this talk about Caitlyn Jenner, and it's interesting because I do believe she has made a huge difference in people having a better understanding, even though there have been many transgendered individuals to come before her. But talk about the feeling of maybe growing up and being in a body and feeling like you're trapped because that's not who you believe you are. I mean, it's kind of hard for some people to understand, but kind of paint the picture of what that's like.
Okay. I know for me, I had no idea what's going on. When I was young, the internet didn't exist yet. It was
okay.
coming. And so you're also, you're not right, but you can't quite put a finger on what's going on. I mean, I was literally in my mid-40s before I understood all this. It's only after the death of my brother that I stumbled onto it, and I honestly think that he nudged me a little bit because it was just something I almost didn't want to look at. And it's so much easier nowadays to do this than it was then. I mean, I knew something was different, and now after I understood, I can look back and see all these things that point to the same thing. Things like my father saying, we could sense a difference when you were little, you emotionally weren't there. Same for my mother. Parents know something's not right, but they can't put their finger on it.
And how young could that start?
Almost under 5. I mean, you see it nowadays. I mean, nowadays, it is not super common, it varies, but you know something's not right, you don't fit. And you spend years of your life wanting to fit. I mean, things that normal fitting and feeling like you belong is something that humans like. We're pack animals, we want to belong, and we just don't quite fit. I mean, for me, I never socialized well with the guys. I just didn't quite fit. I mean, and now it's just as natural as breathing to spend an evening playing sheep's head with a bunch of friends, women friends.
Yeah.
And it can be as young as 2. I worked as a therapist at Pathways Counseling Center in Milwaukee, and I helped a couple work the issues out with their, I'm going to call him son, who identified as a girl that young. And finally, I think it was when he was starting first grade. He started first grade. He actually went to school as a girl the next year. Okay,
and it's important for people watching to know that there are support groups and organizations out there who will help them through this. So it's not something that if a child is that young, you think, oh, they'll grow out of it, or whatever the case may be. You may need to take some further steps and make sure that you're doing what's best for your child.
Absolutely.
It's important for parents to have some place to look. And the community center would be a prime example. They might call and say, we'll start there, and they'll direct you to therapists or other people that can help you, or maybe other people have the same problem.
Okay.
This journey that we go through, you really need other people to do it well. To do it yourself is harder.
Yeah.
You need a community to change.
It takes a village in many instances.
Absolutely. I mean,
absolutely.
Because we are basically changing it's a dramatic change. And it's not just the appearance. Appearance is frankly some of the easier part. It's also socializing, knowing how to act, and just being comfortable in your new being. And that's where things like the LGBT Community Center providing a multitude of different programs that are friendly to people like us, so we can grow in this new person and blossom as the person we are intended to be.
Absolutely. And let's talk politics really quick before we run out of time. We know that there are a plethora of Republican Party contenders who are constantly coming out and saying that they are going to be a part of the race. And one of those would be Dr. Ben Carson. He's one of the many contenders, and he recently stated that he was irritated by the comparison between the fight for same-sex marriage rights and the civil rights movement because there's no overt segregation against gays. He also said that he believes being gay is a choice. Coming up on a political year where you're going to be voting for a president of the United States, these type of statements really do make a difference, and it lets you know where people's heads are. What are your thoughts when you hear stuff like this?
Well, it certainly can be compared to, a civil rights issue. There's discrimination, and that's the big thing, I think, comparing minorities and gays and or transgender people. You're going to be discriminated against. It might not be a large part of the population, but certainly it's a civil rights issue, I believe.
I agree. And talk about Medicare, because before the show we were kind of just talking about some of the changes that are
I was mentioning that the current administration, President Obama, that there has been a change. It used to be up to recently, the Medicare, a lawsuit was brought up saying it's not appropriate that Medicare bans covering genital surgery. And that's been dropped back, so it's not banned anymore. Now, granted, it's the first step in a process to making this covered. And also, a lot of insurance companies will base their coverage on how Medicare covers things. So this opens the doors that this is covered, and it's reasonable. It is covered. It's not a huge amount of the population. It's not going to cost. It's reasonable.
And so, could you both give us the thoughts that you have of what it is you want people to know watching today's show? What would you like for them to walk away with knowing?
I'd like them to know that we're just what I would call normal people. We don't act weird. We just feel internally that we're given an internal gender opposite to what we grew up looking like or what was between our legs. Because gender is between the ears. It's not what is between the legs. So.
Okay, so that is the wee bit of information that you want people to walk away with in trying to understand.
I would like that people look at us and accept us for what we can do and what we bring to the party, not for where we have been, but where we are right now. And I think we bring a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. We're so happy to be who we are, and cherish us for that, not for where we've been. Yeah,
so you have every right to love who you are. And quickly, how would someone get more information on the Gemini Gender Group?
Well, certainly they would, first place to look would be the LGBT Community Center for help.
Okay, there you have it. I thank you both for coming by. You've been so insightful in sharing the information. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having us.
Meredith Leischer is a facilitator at the Gemini Gender Group, and Brenda Hanus has been supported by the Gemini Gender Group. For more information, you can, again, contact the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center. And that is going to do it for today's show. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. As always, thank you for watching, and I do hope you join us again next week as we take another look at our issues, Milwaukee. Have a great day.